music of Al Bononi heralds another missions today. Now, I've got a little bit of fine-tuning to do today. We're slow off the mark. Didn't realise that 5 o'clock was suddenly upon us. I was doing marking. So I will just sort a few things, have a listen to this movement. This next movement, the movement we're listening to now, is one of the most sublime creations of all time. Right, we'll just do a little fade-o-matic there before we hear another concerto by Albinoni, the marvellous Venetian composer who, along with Vivaldi, sort of held the reins with Baroque music in that era. I'm vk3sl, test missions on 160 and on UHF, and also streaming online. Sorry about the slow start today. But, I was doing corrections and suddenly it dawned on me that missions were abound. So, quick adjustments. Oh, I love that concerto.
The old galloping time deficits.
Yes, that's right. I know.
Good afternoon,
vk3op. Hello there, Frank. Good to hear from you. And that work is, it really strikes a chord with me, that particular album.
I love that piece.
It's beautiful.
I must admit, I've heard it before. I don't know its name. But
Yeah.
It's a beautiful piece.
It is. It's a marvellous. The middle movement is just sublime, and it's like an operatic aria. And it's the music of this Venetian composer Albinoni, and it's a miracle it survives, because 90% of Albinoni's music was lost in the Japanese palace in Dresden.
To me, it still sounded very Viennese.
Yeah, yes, definitely, and it all ended up in Dresden. All his collection.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And when Dresden was bombed,
it was lost.
The Saxon Library was in the Japanese palace. And that building was destroyed, and the entire Albinoni's entire corpus was lost, except for a handful of things, some instrumental concertos, which one of just what we heard. So it makes you realise what was lost to humanity.
I mention it because in Dresden I've got relatives there, and I spent a bit of time there.
Okay.
And there's what are they called? They're a full 360 image.
Yes.
That's been recreated, and they've got them inside. There are a couple of them over there. There's that one in Dresden, and there's another one in Leipzig that I went to as well.
Yeah.
They're huge. They're inside old gas tanks.
How interesting.
Great huge storage gas tanks that have now been converted. And so these images, and they light them, and it goes through a full 24-hour cycle of lighting.
Oh, right.
And they have different, projections given at various times. But there's one of Dresden immediately, literally the morning after the bombings.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's like you're standing at a particular point in Dresden, you look around, you can see it, and it's just the devastation. And
yes.
It's, with the sounds of things going on, and there's all sorts of, reading material through there. But it's probably about as close as you can get to having been there.
Yeah.
Really powerful. So, seeing that devastation, I can well understand how all this stuff was lost.
Yeah. It's just so tragic. It was a great cultural centre, and it was bombed at the very end of the world. Churchill was making a statement.
It was a retribution.
It was.
For, what was it? Birmingham? No, Newcastle.
Yes, it was one of the provincial
the
cities in Britain.
Germans bombed, and they went.
Yeah.
This is kind of payback.
Yeah, it was. That's all it was. It had no strategic importance. It was just it was that. And one of the great cultural centres was lost. In fact, there's a wonderful picture, if anyone's interested. The Japanese Palace was one of the beautiful Baroque buildings in Dresden, and it was completely rebuilt. And now it looks exactly the same as it did.
The rebuilding was actually the British royal family. That got that going.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a kind of a conscience thing, I think, that they decided, look, because it was all behind the Iron Curtain, of course.
Yes.
So when the wall fell and they realised it was just still sitting there in a state of disrepair, that's when it really started in earnest, and it was the royal family that kind of was the impetus. And I'm sure I've told you this story before, but there's the great story of an ironmonger.
Yeah.
Who lived in Britain, who cottoned onto the work, and basically they were looking for someone to recast the iron crucifix, the cross on top of the Frauenkirche, which is the really big cathedral there, the sandstone cathedral, which was being rebuilt.
Yes. Because that was completely, it was rubble. It was only the
foundations
left.
Absolute rubble. But and they used as much of the existing blocks as they could, but then they've cut the sandstone from the same quarries that the original
and they had
stone.
the plans. Significantly, they had the plans.
So they were able to rebuild it absolutely accurately.
And they had the foundations, so they were able to work
the foundation and sort of the cellar sections sort of survived.
Yes.
And bits of the walls here and there.
Yeah.
So when you go and see it now, I've got photos of it, you can see the blackened, charred sandstone that were original and then all the new structure.
Yes.
This particular ironmonger petitioned the British royal family to allow him to do the work of recasting the cross.
Oh, right.
Because his father was one of the bombers that dropped the bombs on Dresden.
Oh, God, that's extraordinary.
And he thought and he said, I'm happy to do this. I don't want to be paid. I think it'd be a great thing. And that ended up happening. And so his new one is up on top, and the original molten buckled one is now in the cathedral. Down the bottom. And it's just the whole tale of how it came to be. And
oh, gosh, that's a profound story. What an incredible sort of intergenerational take on things.
The other thing that's beautiful there too is the opera house there.
Oh, yes.
The Zempera.
Yes.
That's a real old world, and again, that's been rebuilt, but it's a beautiful old world, I guess a bit like what's La Scala, that style of house.
Wow, fantastic. Oh, look, I'm quite intrigued by the story of Dresden, and a lot of the music we play comes from the Saxon archives. We did a huge thing about Zelenka a while ago, another Baroque composer, contemporary of Bach, and his music did survive in the Japanese palace because they moved the music down underneath into the cellar, and they saw the bombings come. They knew that the people administering the library, the Saxon library, saw works of significance, and they put them into big steel crates and welded them up, and put them down into the basement. They only got so far. They didn't get to Albinoni's music.
Yeah, ran out of time.
They ran out of time, and his music was all destroyed, but Zelenka's survived, and a lot of Zelenka's music's water damaged because the building was flattened, but the basement was filled up with water.
Good evening.
And hello to you, Frank.
Good evening, Frank. Good evening, Steve.
Hi.
What a fascinating story.
Oh,
There's so much irony in there.
Oh, there is. It's deeply ironic. It's just it really pulls at the heartstrings. There's so much sort of intergenerational tension and cultural significance to all this.
The rebuilding of it, like some of the other palace here, which is the palace of Augustus the Strong, who was the old ruler through and the Catholic cathedral there too. Just extraordinary.
Yeah.
If you look at this stuff and without knowing the story, you go, well, this is definitely of the period, and that's when it was built, and then and kind of yes, but it's been rebuilt because.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. That city centre, it's absolutely beautiful.
Okay.
It really is.
Fantastic.
If you ever get there, it's worth.
I'd like to go. I was
visit.
in stone's throw of Dresden. In fact, Olivia might even go. She's going over next week and spending about 6 weeks over there.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah, she's going to spend much of it. Well, she's going over with a choir and touring all throughout Europe with the XLD choir, but she's going over for 3 weeks earlier. And she's going to spend quite a bit of time with our Czech friends because we lived in Prague for...
this is only a couple of hours over the border by train, from Dresden.
That's it. So now we lived in Prague for 6 months and then 3 months. So we had two extended periods.
I visited Prague a couple of times when I was there, just for a day here and there. So I haven't spent a lot of time there, but that's beautiful too.
It's a gorgeous Baroque city, and I think Dresden was much like Prague.
Yeah.
But look, going back to the topic, yes, I refer people to. There's an extraordinary photograph, and it's on the net, and it's a picture of a painter doing his own. He's sitting amongst the rubble and he's painting the ruins of the Japanese palace, which is the building where all this music was stored, the Saxon State Library. And the building is just it's virtually nothing left, just a couple of walls. It's complete rubble, and he's sitting amongst the rubble.
I suspect some of his work is used in that image that I was talking about.
Yeah, I expect it would be. I'd say it would be. And there's this really powerful image because you see the artist, you see the painting, and you see the ruin all in sharp relief. And it's a scene of utter devastation. It's beyond imagination. It is totally apocalyptic.
Absolutely desolation.
Yeah.
The images remind me a lot of the images of Hiroshima.
Yeah,
after the bomb.
absolutely.
It's really, really similar.
It's ground zero.
Oh my God!
They just wiped the city off the map. There's nothing left. Everything was destroyed and just sort of.
It was a crime, really.
Oh, look, extraordinary, incredible, and now there's this picture of this. Sorry.
I'm sorry, there was no need for it.
Oh yeah, we're just saying, yeah, it was a sort of retribution
Sorry, I came
event.
in late.
Yeah, it was a retribution event. Yes, and anyhow, there's a picture of this artist, a guy called Theodore Rosenhauer, Rosenhauer. Theodore Rosenhauer. He's doing a picture. He's painting in the ruins of this, looking at the Japanese palace, and it's not even recognisable. It's just a couple of walls left. But the thing is, they built that building. It looks exactly the same now as it did in 1870. You know, it's incredible. They've gone to extraordinary lengths to recreate it, and as Mr. OP said, the same with the main cathedral in the middle of Dresden. They that was only finished in, I think, in about 1986 or in more recent times.
Yeah, it was. It took quite a while. Oh no, it was only started in, because when the wall came down was what, 80.
Oh, that's true. It was only done after that, wasn't it? Yeah.
All of this restorative work only started after the wall came down.
Yeah.
So it wasn't finished till probably sometime in the 90s, perhaps.
Yeah. It's astonishing.
But it wasn't started probably till the late 80s at best. You know, maybe 90, 91, because obviously it took a bit of organising too. And
yeah, it says so much about the human spirit. You know, the fact that we can sort of rise out of adversity and redefine things and make these connections. Yeah.
It's great to see all that, but there must have been a hell of a lot lost that can't be replaced.
Oh, there was enormous amount lost.
Well, like your musicians.
Yes, Albinoni.
All lost,
most of his music.
Parchment.
Yeah.
All went up in smoke.
Well, the famous Albinoni Adagio, the work that sort of played a lot in movies and things.
I don't even talk about it.
Yeah, that's supposed to be based on a fragment found in the Saxon Library.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyhow, the story goes on. It's interesting. Interesting to touch base with the Dresden theme, and I do come back to it because I find it sort of really entrancing and sort of just, I don't know, terrifying. Yeah, all right. Well, there we have an Albinoni start to the program, a late start today, and welcome to you, Mr. JR, and I hope you've had a good afternoon.
Had a wonderful lunch, really. Yeah. And Jamie sends his warm regards.
Oh, tremendous, yes.
Hopes to
look, we'll touch base. I hope we're able to fill him in with all of the latest. And,
yes.
That's good, and we'll look forward very much to seeing him.
He's looking forward to understand you have commitments at the moment.
Yeah, look, it's very difficult at the moment. We'll sort of come out the other side soon, but yes, it's just very busy times and a lot of family stuff and a lot of work-related things. So we've got the best time is the late afternoons and the late missions. Well, we'll see how we go. They may not happen as frequently over the next month.
Okay.
But we'll
take one step at a time. Not tomorrow either, of course.
No, tomorrow we're going.
Watch a concert tomorrow.
Yes, I'm going to a concert at the Recital Centre, hearing Henry play with the orchestra tomorrow, so that'll be good. Yeah, all right. Well, look, we'll find a 20s hit. I'm a little bit disorganised, to be honest. 20s hits. Let's find something. Excuse my state of... I think I might refer to the web because I haven't wound up the gramophone. Sorry to say, in my haste. So what have we got? Oh, there's some really good stuff. It's popped up. Look, this is wonder for me, just hearing these amazing... recordings of early jazz, proto-jazz, and early, particularly black bands. There's been all sorts of things. Here's another one of Fess Williams' Royal Flush Orchestra. In about 1927, it was another Harlem band, sort of less known Harlem band, but it's significant because they're a black group and they recorded, which was just not easy for black musicians to record at all. And these fascinating recordings are now sort of, they've always been available, but they're being repackaged, and it's exciting to see them. So we'll hear Fess Williams' Royal Flush Orchestra with Alligator Crawl, which again is a Fats Waller composition. love it.
Wow, all the instruments were in novelty mode, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. It was it was the era when novelty music and syncopated music, it was sort of redefining itself. And there was people like Duke Ellington who sort of took it into that more sophisticated level and tried to dress it up and make it more of a music that would be taken more seriously, I think. And so, yes, at that time, I love the novelty aspect of it.
I love it too. It's a very interesting commentary on the times, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. Very much so.
It just needed a kazoo as the cherry on top, really, didn't it?
That's it. You wouldn't have heard music like that at the Cotton Club and sort of more auspicious venues. There would have been they would have had a different sort of, or they had a different vibe. But this is raw Harlem as it was in the
absolutely.
In the 20s. And these are none of these musicians. Well, I don't know. I think they may have lived on and done other things, but they're not names that are familiar in any of the other big bands. They probably had a more of a parochial sort of existence, but it's just fantastic. I just love that raw energy and just the vibe.
Never heard one quite as raw as that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Here's another one. It's the other side of that disc, and it's Ozark Blues, Fess Williams and his Royal Flush Orchestra from the Savoy Ballroom in Harlem. Savoy Ballroom in Harlem. Yeah, how about that?
Just goes to show how the black musicians were really leading the way, doesn't it?
Oh, they were.
There was no politeness factor there.
No, not at all. You're spot on. Absolutely not. It's just as it is. It's incredibly honest, and it's just flavoursome and full of just abandon, and that's what I love, that sort of just out there.
We owe them so much.
We do. It's so good to hear these recordings. In fact, there's more. There's all sorts of fascinating things popping up. Now, that was the Savoy Ballroom in Harlem, but in the Savoy Ballroom in New York, There was another band, a band called the Savoy Bearcats, and similar sort of enterprise. The artists, I don't quite know where they ended up and what they did. They're probably session players over the years, but there was an incumbent band at the Savoy in New York as well. And the New York, I was just reading about this, the Savoy Ballroom in New York, it's in Lenox Avenue, and it was sort of a legendary club. And what does it say here? Yes, there's an article, Swigging at the Savoy. It was a building, a geographic place, a ballroom in the soul of Lenox Avenue. It was owned by Jay Fagan and Mo Gale. It was managed by African-American businessman and civic leader Charles Buchanan. And Buchanan sought to run a luxury ballroom to accommodate the many thousands who wished to dance in the atmosphere of tasteful refinement, rather than the small stuffy halls and the foul-smelling smoke-laden cellar nightclubs.
Yeah.
I like the idea of those nightclubs, though.
So do I. That's the place to be.
Yeah. Gosh, it features in some Marx Brothers films. Oh, there's heaps. And Dizzy Gillespie performed there later on. It goes on and on and on. It was sort of a competitor to the Cotton Club. Yeah, so we can go to the Savoy Ballroom in New York and hear the Bearcats. There's very little written about this band. We don't know much about them, but they made a few records and they are really stunning. Here they are playing Fletcher Henderson's Stampede. Absolutely on fire. Stampede, the Savoy Bearcats from the Savoy Ballroom in in New
I
York.
love how they all just drop on that final crash too.
They do.
It's really tight, smack, finished.
It's incredible. That is very reminiscent of what Duke Ellington was doing at the Cotton Club. It's very similar in that sort of the drive and the sort of zeal. It's it just sends shivers down my spine. That's going on my playlist for walks to work. I will listen to that over and over and fully digest it. Back in 1926, it's early days too.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Now, there are a few others. Here is Bearcat Stomp, an unprocessed recording, which is always a good thing. So, yeah, let's have a bit more of the Bearcats from New York back in the mid-20s. I'm vk3sl, and
vk3sl.
we're testing. Okay, Bearcat Stomp. Oh, I'm riveted. I want to go there. I want to get a time machine. Where's Mr. H.G. Wells? I want to travel back to New York in the 20s, and that's where I'd plant myself.
You need a DeLorean.
Yes.
Indeed.
I want a wormhole. I just want to be at there.
1.21 gigawatts. How could I have been so irresponsible?
Yeah. Oh, golly gosh. Well, there we have it. That's the Savoy Bearcats. They are on fire. It's an incredible... look, I didn't know those recordings were so good. I'd heard one or two, and that really takes the cake. I'm going to play one more because I'm sort of just riffing and discovering about this group. They weren't even on my radar, to be honest, except for, in a real peripheral way. This one I want to hear because of the title, and it's called Senegalese Stomp. So this sort of refers quite directly to their Afro-American heritage. So I think that in itself is really significant. So we'll hear just one more from the Savoy Bearcats in the mid-1920s and
VK3JR
and vk3sl.
VK3sl and vk3rb. Testing.
Senegalese Stomp, the Savoy Bearcats from the Savoy Ballroom in Lenox Avenue in New York back in the mid-1920s. We pretty much played their entire recorded output in the last little while. So pity there's not more. How great it would have been if we just had a wider array to compared with the Washingtonians and the Cotton Club recordings and Fletcher Henderson. There's not that much material really from black bands at that time, but this stuff is just incredible. Yeah. So, in fact, interesting that they had sort of local circulation. I don't think any of those were ever released in Australia.
Right.
But there were a few things, and I've got one here. I just went to the shelf, and I had a lucky dip, and I was fortunate. I put the more interesting records at the edge of the shelf, so I know where they are. And I've just picked up a Parlophone record from about 1930, and it says D Blues, D-E-E Blues, and it says on the label The Chocolate Dandies. Now, that was a band or scratch group put together by Benny Carter, who was a black trumpet player, and he made lots of recordings under different pseudonyms at that time. So I can play something authentic from the my modest collection here, and of the same ilk. So we can have a listen to this D Blues, and on an old Parlophone 78 with a stroboscope around the edge. So here it is on the SP10, back to 1929. It was a recording called D Blues with on the label it says the Chocolate Dandies, and I think it was actually by all accounts a Benny Carter ensemble and featuring members of Fletcher Henderson's band, and there was absolutely no doubt that that tenor sax solo in the middle was none other than Coleman Hawkins. It was immediately identifiable. No one plays like that with that level of lyricism.
Just marvellous, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just beautiful, yeah. And Rex Stewart's probably the cornet player on that, and it was a star-studded lineup. They had J.C. Higginbottom on the trombone, Benny Carter. Don Redman was probably on that record as well, playing alto sax, and possibly Fat Swallow on the piano. So, yeah, a bit of a star-stud, and that was a record released locally.
One to keep.
Yeah, it's a rather special disc. It's one I put on the side of the rack because I like to refer to it here and there. And if I peel it off the turntable, the other side is the OK Rhythm Kings. Now, I don't know who this is, but I think it's another black band. And they're playing Casaloma Stomp, which is, it says here, Rhythm Style Foxtrot. It's such a pity they don't give credit to the actual musicians on the label, but that's the way it was back then. So we can play that, since I've got the record here, and once it's away on the shelf, it probably won't be discovered for another 5 years. But the OK Rhythm Kings with vocal chorus. I can look them up while we're listening and see if there's any other information. Back to 1929. I have to give this one a nudge. Here we go. In the groove. the OK Rhythm Kings, and I've established, in fact, that it was, in fact, Glenn Gray and his Casaloma Orchestra on that record. So, yeah, there we have it. So it's actually interesting. It's a black band on one side and a white band on the other. But, yeah, on an old Parlophone 78 from the 1920s, late 20s, early 30s, thereabouts. And I think that record, the trombonist, and that was none other than Pee Wee Hunt.
Oh, yeah.
Who sort of had a big career in the 50s as an older man, and did all sorts of hijinks, didn't he, on the trombone, and had a couple of big hits, didn't he, in the 50s, Mr. Pee Wee. But
12th Street Rag was his
that's right, that was his big thing, 12th Street Rag, that's right. And yeah, interesting to hear that recording of Glenn Gray on the flip side of the black band with Coleman Hawkins, the D Blues.
Oh, really?
Well, that was the other side we just heard before. Yeah, the earlier one. So I just flipped the disc. Yeah, so anyhow, let's move on. And I really haven't thought ahead of this. I've sort of been absorbed in the magic of the moment and haven't queued up anything else for the minute. I was going to say that there was quite a few people on the coffee break today, and it was good to hear Mr. Newbeck was on from Cranbourne.
I can't hear Mr. Newbeck. I can just get a vague carrier.
Yeah. Yes, I can barely hear him, but hopefully he'll, I don't know if he's got a very powerful transmitter, but he came through on the SDR and a little bit. And Mr. OP, if you're still with us there, it was good to hear you on the session this morning.
Certainly was. I could hear you, Frank.
Oh yeah, I was there for a little while, but yeah. I didn't get too involved because I was just mainly listening to play with a noise cancelling setup.
Yeah, but it sounds like that worked well for you, Frank.
This morning it did. The issues were the only station I couldn't really hear was the Beck, BEK.
Yeah.
And I know he's running low power, and he's probably the most distant. Even Clint, I could hear kind of okay, and particularly after he tweaked his audio. And the comment I was going to make with your signal this morning, you were with that. I was able to read you, obviously, and being on 1825, I could read you at about 5 and 8.
Okay.
Whereas now it's degraded, and I've managed to extract another sort of S unit or so out of the noise cancelling, but I think the band does deteriorate through the day a bit, and it's much harder work now. So anyway, we're working on it. I've made some changes to the noise cancelling system. I've added a bit more antenna this afternoon, and I'm now also running an antenna tuning unit on that antenna before it feeds the noise canceller. Right. So I can try to couple more signal into the canceller. And that, I reckon I've bought myself another S unit of cancellation. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, good for you.
Excellent, Frank.
Oh, that's really good, Frank. It's just good to hear on the net, and it's quite a few people on actually this morning, and I never have more than about a 30-minute window, but it was nice to catch up. And look, everyone's sort of trying to find their best pathway in the face of adversity, really, with noise. Yeah, we all experience noise. It was a pretty DCP. It's just muffle missions, unfortunately, and I just he came up. I could actually copy most of what
he was quite strong here, but
was he?
His audio was very bottom heavy. There wasn't a lot of high end in it.
Yeah, I reckon.
I think that's what was making it tough for people.
I think it might be, and because I think his transmitter's okay. So I reckon if he goes down the rocking armature microphone line, that might actually emancipate things a bit and give him better. He needs crisp audio. You just got to have it. You just got to cut through because it's just the nature of the band and the conditions.
Yeah, well, that's what I've done with mine after Steve the other morning mentioned. Yeah. So I've wound up the EQ on the top end of my transceiver. And, but there's still more to go. And once I feed this system that I'm talking to you on now into that radio, then I'll have the ability via the mixer to do any amount of tweaking. So that will help.
Yeah. Look, I think you can go to town. You can really put up massive trebs, overmodulate, do all of those things. There's no one else on the band anyhow at that time, and just push through, plough through the noise. But having a wide range speaker helps as well. But anyhow, it was a bit of a community vibe this morning, and Clint's certainly getting out really well now.
I think he just needs a bit more audio. I still think he was a bit light for audio for me.
Right,
It just
okay.
didn't sound as loud as others. Like his signal was okay.
Sure.
But just, and he did some tweaks and the top end came up a little bit and
Yeah.
it was more readable towards the end of the net.
Yeah.
So, but I think he can squeeze a bit more out of that thing.
Yeah, lucky bugger, he's got an Optimod. Oh, what I'd give for one of them.
He improved it a lot on what he was.
I'm
Yes,
jealous.
But I have the far more tweakable cheap man's version of it.
Okay.
Yeah, have a look up the Behringer DEQ 2496.
Oh, that's what I use here.
Yeah, I have one of those, which I'm
Yes.
going to use.
Yep, that's the
I
way to
think you
go.
can push things far harder than Optimod with one of those.
Yes, you can actually. 2496. Yes, that's what I use right in front of my eyes. Yeah, they're a great little unit, and yes, certainly good for cutting through, pushing through the noise. And so you're using a long sense antenna now. Well, if you've sort of evolved with that.
75 metres of wire, helically wound onto about a 9 or a 10 metre squid pole, and just with a base coil with impedance taps and
Yeah.
just to pull it in.
Is that your noise antenna?
No, that's the main
That's what I
vertical
was going to say. That's the main
receive
vertical
and TX antenna.
Yeah, that's working well for you. No, I was referring to the noise antenna, the
Noise
sense,
antenna
or
is
the
a
sense antenna.
Piece of cable goes out through my portal here out the side. It's dangling, so as in RG58, whatever it is.
Yep.
Just a connector out there and connected to that. There's a piece of wire to the centre pin going off one way and another piece of wire going off the other way, fairly low around the house at the skirt level of the house.
Sure.
And at the moment there's probably, 12 to 15 metres either side.
Okay.
But I'm going to increase the length of that to hopefully increase the amount of signal I can pick up at the 160 energy level.
Yes.
And couple it in, and then possibly even make that like a link dipole. So for the various bands, so basically means I'll have full length will be what I use to get the energy in at 160.
Yeah.
And then pull some links out to shorten it for say 80 and so we're
It's making little
slowly
seasonal adjustments.
But I'm just having a play at the moment to see what I can achieve with what.
Sure.
And getting a handle on what will work and what won't.
Yeah, look, I'll follow your explorations closely because years ago when I first came up at 160, I was using an MFJ 1025, and look, I just don't think I had my sense antenna long enough, and it worked okay, and I was able to get some stations out of the noise, but I'd like to sort of reinvigorate that system now that I'm sort of trying to be a little bit more regular on Saturday mornings. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to hear how things go. Yeah.
I mean, look, I think that you should even now just take that canceller out and start using it and just get basically a little bit of a dipole antenna, simple. You don't need a balun because it's only RX, so you're not worried about TX currents coming back. All you're trying to do is pick up.
Yeah.
The trick is placing the antenna in such a spot where it's going to pick up all of the local noise sources and not the signal you're interested in. So down low, around the sill level of the house down low or the fence or something. And,
Yes.
And near bits of equipment that you suspect generating noise. And, and I mean, my next thing too is I'm going to run around with essentially a version of a portable spectrum analyzer and a little interference loop that I have that I made, which is just out of some RG213, a split loop for nulling and peaking signals, and I'm going to run around with that and start hunting down what noise sources are here on this property. Okay. And then once I can identify all of those, and then I can do what the most I can to nullify those at the source. Yeah. Combined with then the noise count, I'm hoping I can, I can pull a few more S units out of this
I think
stuff.
you probably will.
See.
No, it sounds like you're on the right track with that, Frank. Yeah, good on you.
My 160 metre Maconi T works okay.
Yeah, that's excellent. That works really well for you. And look, it's a good little community on Saturday mornings. It's a tricky one because people come and go, so trying to get a fluent sort of list is a bit of a challenge for poor old Gus, but
so Gus runs the Saturday net, does he?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, because I was hearing Gus all right. I'm not sure if he was hearing me, but once I get the amp in line, I should be able to, I'll be able to generate a fair bit more steam. So
look, he the only problem with is that he has the computer in a different room. So
you got to run from one place to another.
So there's a sort of latency, but look, it's the way he does it.
latency par excellence.
Yes. So
in this case, it's organic latency, the time it takes to run from one room to another.
That's
Exactly, Frank.
Precisely. And I did hear there's a new supernova to be aware of.
Yeah, last week there was a great program on the BBC about it.
Okay. Oh, really?
On a program called Science in Action.
Science in Action.
Okay,
right.
where is it? What is it? 'Cause
Science in
it's not
Action.
the references to what they think is happening with Beetlejuice, is it?
Science in Action. I'm writing this down.
Because Beetlejuice, which is a mega huge star, it's over something like 2,000 times the size of our sun in the constellation Orion.
Yes, it's in
has
Orion. Yes.
been undergoing some dimming and pulsating of recent that they've noticed, and that's some of the indications, because those massive stars have much shorter lifetimes because they consume their fuel much more quickly.
Yeah.
Their suspicion is that Betelgeuse is going to go supernova, and it will be a big one, to
Yes.
the point where it will probably, when it goes, I mean, and look,
If it goes,
cosmological terms, they're saying it's on its way now, but that still could be thousands of years away.
yeah.
It's not,
Well, we might have another Christmas story.
correctly, human lifetimes is so short compared to these events.
Yeah.
But at its peak brightness, they're saying this is highly likely this will be visible during the day.
It's extraordinary to think that.
The ones that are very close are a bit of a worry because, when it happens, it's a huge radiation outpour.
Fortunately, it's far enough. I think it's 640 light years, and we're beyond the realm of its blast radius or anything being lethal to us. There could be some effects, certainly. Big electromagnetic pulse. You could certainly see some interesting auroral effects and all sorts of stuff.
That still may take some time to get to us, though. Man.
Absolutely, it's not to say we won't cop anything, but it's not what's called an ELE for us.
Yeah.
It's far enough away that we're protected.
Interesting.
Exactly right, Frank, but there are others that are likely to pop.
Yeah, well, we could hear something. We could, they could. So,
and then, hang around, because only 4 billion years' time we're going to have a head-on smash with the Andromeda Galaxy.
Well, that would be interesting.
That's going to be a big dance of two mega large spiral galaxies for a few billion years while they sort themselves out.
Big hit.
Exactly.
Yeah, it'll certainly be a... I'm just sifting through.
And then we'll end up with a huge, supermassive binary black hole system at the core of whatever's left after that.
Something will happen. It's all happened before, hasn't it?
And it will all happen again. Sorry, what's that quote?
Isn't our galaxy a second-generation event, anyhow?
Look, the best knowledge seems to think that it's an evolution. We've had collisions with other smaller galaxies already. Our galaxy as a spiral is quite large.
Yeah.
It's of the larger class. It's not the largest. There are clusters that are larger, but as a spiral, we're pretty big.
Yeah.
Andromeda and ours apparently are very similar in size.
Okay.
And part of the local group.
But we're moving towards each other, aren't we?
Yes, and yes, about 4 billion times. But there's another cluster that's going to go through in about 2.5 billion years. It's going to go through, but that's much smaller now. That's still going to cause a few interesting effects.
Wow.
Let's hope that whichever part of the spiral arm it goes through, that we're 180 degrees out the other side when it happens.
I hope
that's where
so.
we're probably the
Because
safest.
it could be a bit of a shake-up if it gets...
I think we're probably okay.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know.
Well, who knows? It's all
The
a
kind
big...
of forces here are mind-boggling.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? They are. Wasn't there was a black hole that I read something in the media about a black hole with it, which had a it was so massive, and the sort of effects of all of the electromagnetic stuff coming out of it was it was measured and was
Like
seen.
Hawking radiation, or
Yeah.
Well, the other you get ionized jets that occur.
Yeah,
that
that's
come
what
out
it
off
was.
The axes that.
Yeah.
What happens? They're so massive that matter gets thrown. You don't just get the sort of planar event horizon. Stuff gets thrown up to instead of say around its equator, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
It ends up going up to the poles, and that ends up forming jets that are so energetic that they can go out for 100,000 light years, and they're lethal. They're like literally, if you think the Death Star in Star Wars was bad, these things would make it look like chicken feed.
That's right. Yes,
Exactly.
that's right. What's that famous line from Star Wars? It's not a planet, That's a space station.
That's no moon. I've got a bad feeling about this.
And what did you say? That's no moon. That's a space station. Yes. Oh, I love it. All right. Well, look, we'll put on another 78. I thought I'd change tack, actually, because we've been hearing a lot of jazz, and people are not sort of into jazz that much. They probably have turned off by now, but I thought, well, there's a lot of other stuff in this room, and I'll play a historic recording of the wonderful fiddle player, Bronislaw Huberman, who played for Brahms, I should mention. As a 12-year-old, he played for Brahms, and he moved Brahms to tears with his playing, and Brahms went to the concert, actually, to admonish the kid for playing the concerto, his famous Brahms concerto, and he went along to in a sort of state of reprehension, and this kid completely dazzled him, and as a 12-year-old, and Huberman lived on. He made some of the very first discs in 1898, and lived until the 1940s, but this is a recording in the late 20s of him playing a piece by Elgar. It's absolutely sublime. It's beautiful playing for another time, and this is really as good as it sounded in the 19th century. Oh, love it. Oh, that was Bronislav Huberman, a recording from the late 20s, playing Elgar's Le Capriccios. Oh, he just plays that with such spirit. He took delightful liberties. It's of its time. No one in the world would play like that today. It's just marvellous stuff. So, but look, I'll follow on with another recording of that piece. This is a shortened version played by Joseph Hasid. Now, this fellow it's a really, really tragic story. He was a genius. In fact, Fritz Kreisler heard Hasid play, and he said publicly, that every 100 years there's a Heifetz, and every 200 years there's a Hasid.
There you go.
Yeah, from Fritz himself said this, and this guy, Mr. Hasid, he was young, he was just 16, and he just showed unbelievable promise. In fact, everyone was just riveted to this youngster with this phenomenal gift. And he made
How long did he live?
He didn't live long. He didn't even get to his 21st birthday, I don't think.
Oh, no.
And he unfortunately, he had severe bipolar and all associated things. And back in the day, this is a terrible story. They used to lobotomize people, and they basically made him brain dead by mucking around with his brain.
Yeah.
So, yes, he went through the operation and came out a vegetable and died.
Oh, no.
It's a terrible story. Joseph Hasid, it's shocking.
Yeah, I know.
And
How long? When was this?
this was in the early 40s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at that time when they were doing horrible things, and medicine thought it was better than it was.
Yeah.
And so, but all we have of Joseph Hasid is a handful of recordings he made, test recordings he made with Gerald Moore in 1940, that year. And these records have historians just so excited because they reveal a level of violin playing which has hitherto been exceeded, really. And one of the recordings he made is of the Le Capriccios, the piece we just heard. And this is absolutely extraordinary fiddle playing. It's got everything. It's got so much colour in every gesture. And I think we'll let the recording speak for itself. Oh, the magic of Joseph Hasid. The Capriccios by Elgar, played by Mr. Hasid in 1940.
What an amazing shame that he died.
Just absolutely tragic. Look, these days are sort of chemical ways to deal with these things, and if they hadn't interfered and given him that big operation, he may have lived on and still.
Yeah, the big operation was the problem, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the problem. It was a botched job, really. I mean, it was in the early days of that, and it's just awful. This makes you shiver with the thought of lobotomizing a young kid. But anyhow, that's the story of Joseph Hasid. He made a handful of recordings in 1940, and they are all just extraordinary. We'll devote emissions to him. We'll play them. There's only about 6 of them, and we'll play them all and talk about it and divulge. Look, I'm hoping that next week's going to work, and next Friday, if I get a reasonably clear day and a clear week. Well, I don't really have a clear week. I've got 3 concerts this week, but we'll try and we'll see how we go. And I'm really keen to do a program on Buxtehude, playing some of his music. And
well, just let me know.
Yeah. So we'll try for that, and maybe a bit of Hasid. And we usually have a good potpourri when we do our late night programs, not just strictly jazz. And I have to say, I've been really enjoying our jazz immersions of late.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So anyhow, folks, well, I'm going to have to wind up for today. I won't be here tomorrow.
After the other day, I did have a bit of a read about the potential origins of the word jazz.
Oh, did you? Tell me what you found.
You should go and have a read of the Wikipedia page about it. It's interesting. One of the...
tell me.
There are some origins, but some of them are, perhaps not fit for on the wireless.
Interesting.
Because of the nature of the beat. So
yes.
It's worth a read. It's interesting.
Okay, I know the term ragtime has certain derivations as well, which are probably not fit for public discussion, but to do with I suppose it shouldn't be a taboo subject, but basically in brothels when women were menstruating, they used to have a piano player.
There's jazz and the JASS variant. Then apparently there's a stem back to a word JASM. And then there's another word that's very similar to that.
Yeah.
And that's tied into the origins potentially as well because of the nature of the music. And so it's worth a read.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, so much, whether, it's the reality is that so much of this music was played in brothels, in that sort of setting.
Little bars and taverns with poor lighting and lots of smoke and
that's right and
whatever people were getting up to.
That's right. So look, it's fascinating. That's reality, but people can use their imaginations to fill the gaps. But it is completely fascinating. And we know that people like Jelly Roll Morton and even Louis Armstrong as a kid was playing trumpet in brothels as a 10-year-old. I think it was sort of I think the way the establishments worked back then was to have like an entrance area.
A little bit of ambience.
Yes, that's right. They sort of had like a lounge where people would be in various stages of dress or undress, and then I think the way it worked was people sort of went from there and into their own private little boudoirs. But
so really, it was the original lounge or house music.
Yes, it was absolutely, indeed, it was
lounge music like you've never been there before.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Lounge music with dimension. And so we'll leave that to people's. That doesn't leave anything to imagination, really. Now I've got a record on the player for the next little bit while I do dinner, and it's one I picked up at the Inverloch Op Shop, and it's a custom Mercury record from the 50s, and this will be really crass, and it's going to be a case of from the sublime to the ridiculous, but I like to do that sometimes. And it's the name of the record is Better Leighton Than Ever, so we'll devote this one to Mr. Leighton. And it's Eddie Leighton with rhythm section, and wait for it, folks, he is a Hammond organ player. So we hear from fine players on the electric organ, we have heard sweet sentimentality, hip hillbilly, jumping jazz and rock and roll, but never has it produced such swinging, syncopated, sophisticated urbanality as in the hands of Eddie Layton, the tireless star of the exquisite Mermaid Room in New York's Park Sheraton Hotel. Well, can't go beyond this. It's supposed to be a gentle instrument, but there are times when Eddie Layton just won't let your nerves lie down and rest. On his swinging numbers, when he insidiously insists on missing each beat by a hairline, the syncopation sets your toes a-twittering and your spine cord wiggling. It's a conversation stopper. Well, how can we go past this? On the other hand, when he gets lyrical, say, as he does here and tenderly, the atoms of air seem to rise up around you as though the strings of a great symphony orchestra were swelling in the room. The electric organ didn't know it had so much to promise until Eddie Layton came
such a build-up, it better be good.
I love these descriptions. It's brilliant. It's the electric organ didn't know, as if it's alive, didn't know it had so much to promise until Eddie Layton came along and showed it. It says, how can we go past that? We've got to play this, folks. So this will be our last offering for the day. And we'll be back again next Friday. Should be back, for afternoon session at least, hopefully for late night. And we'll see where it all takes us. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being part of the picture. Thank you, Ms. Franks Abound, both of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, it's been great to catch up.
Good evening, vk3sl.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's all been fun and games, and we'll now finish off with Eddie Layton with the rhythm section, courtesy of a Mercury custom record. And I have to say, this is the punchline, big stamp on across the record, someone's written or printed the word reject. So say no more. Invitation. You've been listening to a test transmission from vk3sl. We've been testing on 160 and on UHF and also streaming online. And we're listening now to Eddie Layton with the Rhythm Section. That's an album, a Mercury, rather scratched up album. It's called Better Layton Than Ever. How about that for a pun? Boom, boom. Okay, folks, this is it for today. We'll just wind with this track and then we'll be back next week at our usual time. Hopefully everything will run smoothly next weekend. It's all a bit of an unknown, to be honest, but we'll do our best. Cheers for now.